Good morning and welcome to our office hours presentation for today. This is Paul Hoyt. It's good to see you here again. Office Hours is a relaxed, informal mentoring program that we do every Monday at noon Pacific time. The recordings are available for the next couple of days, and then all recordings are archived in our members area. The reasons we do office hours is because I know that being a successful entrepreneur, a successful small business owner can be a great experience, but I also know that it's tough. You need education, training, tools, and team in order to be successful. And I want you to get to know me because when you do, I'm sure you'll know that I really do care about you. And I want you to succeed, and we've got a lot to offer. Our agenda for the office hours presentations is the same. We have an in-depth discussion of a business success principle, some closing remarks, perhaps a special offer or two, and an invitation for next week's session, and then open questions and answers. First, questions and discussion around the topic of the day, and then we open it up to anything that you want to talk about. While we're doing the conversation today, you can join us on Facebook Brilliant Business Group. Just go to www.facebook.com/groups/Brilliant Business and join if you're not already a member, and post any sort of questions and comments you have there. And we're building up a bit of a community to mastermind and brainstorm with each other and help each other solve problems and address challenges during the week as well. You can make comments, ask questions, share your insights with other members of the group and the takeaways from the call today. And if you haven't done so already, I encourage you to like my business page on Facebook. Today's topic is on reducing expenses and increasing quality through excellence in operations management. So I've been around the block quite a few times, and one of those blocks that I went around was in the manufacturing industry. I worked in manufacturing from 1975 till about 1993 or so, so nearly 20 years of experience working in manufacturing. And of course, when you work in manufacturing, there's a significant amount of attention paid to increasing manufacturing efficiency and quality through the application of various operations management methodologies. And at one point in time, even though it wasn't in manufacturing, I was a director of quality assurance for a professional service team. So I learned a lot about quality control and quality assurance at that same time as well. So I have a lot of experience with operations management and many of the methodologies that we're going to talk about today, and certainly a lot of experience with improving quality and investigating quality issues and making improvements to processes to make sure that you learn the lessons that the opportunity provided whenever you had a quality issue. As always, I relate the subject matter of the day to one or more of the key performance areas. And operations management is a lot about leadership because it's a lot about forming your company culture to be a culture that focuses on consistent improvements in operations management. But of course, it's also focused on operations and administration area of the business as well. Today we're going to talk about project management versus operations management. We'll talk about quality and focusing on quality. We'll talk about a variety of methodologies for operations management. I'll offer some tips, and as we usually end up with the bottom line itself. First, I want to repeat a couple of slides that we did last week on management and leadership. So leadership is about doing the right things. It's about having a vision and making great decisions for your business, making sure that the priorities and the focus of the people at the business are focused on things that will further your goals and objectives. And management then is about doing things right. And when it comes to management, there are two primary focuses. There's operations management and project management. Last week in our presentation on project management, we talked about project management as being things that you do just one time with a very specific beginning and a specific end, typically with temporary teams, and those teams are usually interdepartmental or cross-functional, so they can be virtual teams as opposed to a project team that has one real-life supervisor or manager to it. And generally projects are one-time events, so they haven't been done before, and your focus is on creating something of quality according to the timeline and the budget of the project itself. And typically it's difficult to estimate time and the budget, and therefore it's difficult to optimize any sort of project management effort that you have. Operations management is much different. Operations management is focusing on the repetitive tasks of a company. typically things that you do over and over again and will do over and over again for the life of the business with permanent teams. So you don't have virtual teams that come together just for a few weeks or a few months to do a project. You have permanent teams where people have permanent jobs, and therefore operations management is about optimizing the operations of a company. With operations management, as a definition of this, it's the responsibility of assuring that your business operations and your manufacturing operations are efficient in terms of using as few resources as needed and effective in terms of meeting your customer requirements, which means that they are of sufficient quality. It is concerned with managing the processes that converts inputs into outputs. And here's some examples of things that you might focus on from an operations management perspective. Assembly lines. So on an assembly lines, raw materials go in at one or more stations along the assembly line, and people do a very specific job at each station in an assembly line, and at the end you get a finished product, or at least an interim product that can be taken back into inventory at the end of it. So many things are created using assembly lines: automobiles, airplanes, motors, any sorts of thing that are repetitive in their nature in manufacturing are oftentimes done with assembly line processes. The reason we do that is because it minimizes the movement and minimizes any sort of queue time and wait time associated with parts as they move through a manufacturing process. But operations management can also be focused on discrete work centers. So in manufacturing, you typically manufacture via assembly lines, or you manufacture via discrete work centers. And in discrete work centers, you'll have parts that are built at one work center and will be moved to another work center where another operation or two will be done on that particular part, and then may perhaps move to a third work center. And you have multiple work centers in what they call a routing, which routes parts through a manufacturing department so that they can be acted upon at different work centers or workstations within that. But even if you have a discrete work center manufacturing process, even if you're doing discrete manufacturing instead of repetitive manufacturing, you can still apply operations management techniques, operations management methodologies to a manufacturing process that does have discrete work centers. And you can also apply operations management to business processes such as payroll, such as order processing and invoicing, and any sort of monthly accounting processes that you have. In essence, you can apply operations management methodology to anything that focuses on efficiency and quality, to anything that's repeated week after week, day after day, or month after month. I want to talk a little bit about quality control and quality assurance here, or as I like to couple them together, into quality focus. Quality control is about putting steps in your process to ensure the success of a particular process. And quality assurance is about adding steps typically to the end of a process to confirm that the quality objectives have been achieved, typically through some sort of inspection. So those are the two different focuses whenever you're focusing on quality. One of them is quality assurance, to make sure that there are interim steps along the way so that you can catch quality errors early in the process, and then quality assurance at the end of it, which is focused on making sure that when something has been completed, it has been completed according to specifications. And there are lots of methodologies that are primarily focused on quality control as opposed to quality assurance. We're going to talk about several of those operations management methodologies today. We'll talk about continuous quality improvement, something that we got from the Japanese friends called Kaizen, lean manufacturing, Six Sigma, and statistical process control, and business process engineering or business process re-engineering that we see in a lot of white-collar or front office environments. First, let's talk a little bit about continuous process improvements. Continuous process improvements is a focus on evolution instead of revolution. It's saying that we're going to improve things a little bit every day, and the process was championed by W. Edwards Deming and his focus on perfecting the manufacturing process. I don't know if you've heard of Mr. Deming or not, Dr. Deming. He was very famous for being the single most influential person in the rise of Japanese manufacturing from 1950 through 1960. Japan was devastated during World War II, but from 1950 to 1960, they totally remade their entire manufacturing processes and all of their cultures over there, and gained to where in 1960 they were the second most powerful economy next to the United States. And it was primarily through their implementation of continuous process improvement methodologies as championed by W. Edwards Deming. He did a lot of things, but one of the things that he really focused on was perfecting the manufacturing process. When you look up continuous process improvement online, you can find a variety of graphs, and I want to show a couple of them today, or little diagrams that describe the process. This continuous process improvement process says that we start out by identifying opportunities in the process or workflow, and then we create a plan on how we can improve the current process. Then we execute, we implement the changes that we have discovered, and then we review the plan to make sure that we got the changes that we expected or the improvements that we expected, and make sure they're working out for the team, and then it starts all over again. We, again, refocus to identify additional opportunities. We plan them, we implement them, and we review them. Here's another diagram that describes essentially the same flow, but uses a little bit different language. In this one, we start out by discovering and modeling the possibility of making changes to a manufacturing line or a business process. Then we design and we deploy the changes, we execute and we monitor them, and then we analyze and optimize them. So the commonality that we see is that we look for the opportunities to make improvements, we think it through and design those improvements, we implement them, we deploy them, and then we measure or debrief to make sure that we in fact got the changes that we expected to get, and then we do it all over again, day after day after day. One of the disciplines or methodologies which focuses on that daily improvements is something called Kaizen. Kaizen is Japanese for good change, and it's practiced daily. And it really came out of Deming's work in the 1950s in the Japanese culture. So with Kaizen, improvements are based on many small changes rather than radical changes that are delivered by some other department, from like a research and development department. And the ideas are supposed to come from the workers themselves, and when they do, they are less likely to be radically different and easier to implement. So these small improvements that come out of a Kaizen process then are also less likely to require a major capital investment than if you had major process changes that were done by an engineering team outside of the workforce. With Kaizen, the ideas comes from the talents of the existing workforce as opposed to the research or consultants or any equipment that you bring in from the outside, which can be very expensive. And we encourage all of the employees of the company to be continually seeking ways to improve their own performance in addition to ways to improve the processes that you work with. And that really encourages the workers to take ownership of their work and helps reinforce teamwork and improves worker motivation. For those of you who tuned in to an office hours I did a couple of weeks ago on the future of management, you're going to recognize a lot of the language and a lot of the process that I just talked about. So the discipline of the future of management, which in something I called the age of ideas in that office hours presentation. And if you haven't seen it, I really encourage you to do that, because it has a lot to do with Kaizen. It has a lot to do with harnessing the ideas that come out of every employee that works at your company and instilling a culture of continuous process improvement. And derivation on Kaizen is something called lean manufacturing. And in lean manufacturing, the focus is on eliminating expenditures of any kind other than those that provide direct creation of value for your end customers. And it considers anything that's not of direct value for your customers to be wasteful and a target of elimination. And with lean manufacturing, we always take a look at our processes from the perspectives of a client. And anything that is not of value, in other words, if anything is something that the customer would not pay for, then we focus to eliminate that from our processes while maintaining quality or increasing quality at the same time. The best example of lean manufacturing comes from Toyota's primary focus on what they call the 7 wastes. We'll go through these one at a time. First waste that they talk about is transportation. So anytime that I am moving a part from work center A to work center B, or from manufacturing facility A to manufacturing facility B, transportation takes up time. Transportation takes cost, and it costs money to transport things, and it also increases inventory that you have on hand. So transportation is a waste. If in your operations you can minimize the movement of parts and people from place to place, then you're cutting down on transportation, which is something typically that your client is not going to pay for, especially when it's internal to your company. And you can eliminate that waste. Inventory is another big waste. Ideally, you would have the minimal amount of inventory on hand. So anytime that you have inventory, in your raw materials inventory, in your work in process inventory, where it's being moved from work center to work center, and you've got something, sitting in the hallways or sitting in the aisles of a manufacturing facility, then that's wasted inventory. Anytime your inventory is sitting in your finished goods inventory or in warehouse, it is a waste because it's not adding value to you or your customers. Motion is very similar to transportation, but in a manufacturing process itself, if you've got wasted time and motion, then that's a waste that we can get rid of. Wait time. Whenever a part is sitting waiting to be operated on, or whenever a person is sitting waiting on work to be delivered to their particular work center, then that is a waste of labor dollars primarily. Or it could also be a waste of inventory dollars. Overprocessing means that we're working on it too much, that we're focusing on getting quality to a point to where it's no longer providing value to our clients, to our customers. We've reached that point of diminishing returns to where we don't have to polish it anymore. We don't have to do any additional processing because the quality is sufficient. And overproduction typically results in some sort of shrinkage or waste or sell-off of inventory because we built too much. And the seventh of their waste is on defects themselves. Defects that means that something needs to be thrown away or something that needs to be done over. A part needs to be reworked, or a part needs to be scrapped, or a process in a white-collar environment just needs to be done over. So those are the Toyota 7 wastes. And when you think about consistently improving the quality of a manufacturing operation or improving the quality of a business operation, of a white-collar operation, think about these 7 wastes that Toyota came up with. That's how they became one of the world's largest, if not the world's largest and most respected automobile manufacturer today. Here in the United States, we came up with our own methodologies, and the most popular one is one called Six Sigma. You see at the diagram at the bottom of your page there, that's the common Six Sigma symbol. Difficult for me to say, but not too hard to draw, I guess. This was originally developed by Motorola in 1986. It's where we seek to improve the quality of our process and outputs by identifying and removing anything that becomes a cause of a defect, and therefore minimizing the variability in manufacturing and business processes. Six Sigma is typified by the use of a set of quality management methods, especially including statistical methods, and it creates a company culture or an infrastructure that's focused on having people within the organization have particular labels and certifications within the Six Sigma process. So you may hear of Six Sigma champions, black belts, green belts, yellow belts, etc. Those are specific training disciplines and used to identify and train experts on a variety of the different methods that are used in the Six Sigma process. One of those processes that is used in Six Sigma and in a lot of other manufacturing operations, is something they call statistical process control. With statistical process control, it's applied to monitor and control a process. Again, remember we talked about the difference between quality control and quality assurance. Statistical process control is all about controlling a specific process so that you have a minimum, or if not completely eliminated, all of your waste, which is rework and scrap. The key tools used in statistical process control include charts and a focus on continuous improvement and design of experiments. So it's very typical to have statistical measurements. So an example of one of these might be pulling off every 100 parts, every 100 of parts that flow through a manufacturing line, and measuring it, testing the quality of it and somehow, and then charting the measurements that you have so that you can tell whether or not the machine is going at a variance. In a manufacturing operation, that happens a lot. You set up a particular machine to make a particular part, but tools get worn down or processes go out of variance in some way. Electrodes diminish in their size and scope. And the way that you tell that you're starting to be out of tolerance is by continuing to monitor the quality that is being produced at a specific work center. So we use that with statistical process control. And every few minutes, every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, every hour, every 100th part, you'll take a part off of the process, measure it, and then chart it so that you can tell whenever it's starting to fall out of tolerance. And when it falls out of tolerance, then you shut down the process, you replace the tooling, you readjust all of the calibrations so that you can begin to, again, make that particular part or do that particular step in the operation within the tolerance and within the specifications required by the engineering team. The reason we do this is because we catch things early in the process. We catch the idea that a machine needs to be tuned before it starts making bad parts. We catch it early in the process, so we catch it at step 1 of a process instead of step 6 of a process through some sort of quality assurance or inspection, and therefore really reduces the amount of rework that we have and reduces the amount of waste that comes out of a manufacturing process. Well, all of these things that we've talked about so far, Kaizen, continuous process improvement, lean manufacturing, the 7 wastes, statistical process control, can also be applied to business process engineering or business process re-engineering. It's very similar to manufacturing process engineering, except for it's a lot less expensive to redesign and improve. Strangely enough, though, I have a lot of experience when it comes to business process re-engineering, because in the first 30 years of my career, I designed and implemented information systems, which were computer programs typically to automate business processes. So we did a lot of business process re-engineering, and what we found was there can be lots of resistance. In fact, there can be more resistance in a white-collar front office environment towards reinventing and re-engineering business processes than I've seen in a back office in a manufacturing center to redoing the processes back there. So just because something is quicker and simpler to re-engineer doesn't mean that it's going to be readily accepted by everybody that does it, especially, by the way, when you have a team that comes from the outside and says, this is the way we're going to do it. You remember what your job was yesterday? Well, your job has changed, and your new job is X. Well, you can get a lot of resistance when you do it that particular way. Whenever you do business process re-engineering, you look for expensive processes where you have a lot of people doing the same thing. And you look for unnecessary steps, duplication of effort, common points of failure, or points where quality is known to be poor in the process. And you focus on doing data collection close to the source, and you focus on checks and balances. So you apply statistical process control techniques even when it comes to business processes through doing checks and balances at interim steps along the way to make sure that you don't have to do something over again when you complete a specific business process. And this is the process that I generally use whenever I go into companies and do business process re-engineering. First, we document the existing system, understanding what the flow is, how information is gathered, how information is processed along the way, how it's moved from workstation to workstation or work center to work center or office to office. And we document the existing system and typically create a flow chart that we get buy-off on. And while we are documenting, we interview those working with the system and look for opportunities. Typically, the people who are working with the system already have some great ideas about ways in which the quality can be improved and the efficiency can be improved. And you want to look for those opportunities and gather them and, of course, give people credit for them. Then we design and document the new system. We socialize it and inspire the people who are supposed to be adopting the new system to adopt it and make sure that it's going to meet their requirements and is something that they can buy into. Then we train and implement, and once we've implemented, we evaluate the results. And again, that's the critical part that was in both of those continuous process improvement diagrams that we showed earlier in the presentation, is checking back a couple of weeks later, a couple of months later, and making sure that you're getting the improvements in efficiency and or quality that you expected to get whenever you re-engineered a business process and went through the process of doing that. So here's some tips. Whether you are doing a manufacturing process engineering or business process engineering, here's some tips. First, it's really all about the culture. We talked about this a lot in the future of management and reinforce it today when we talk about operations management. It's about establishing a culture of continuous process improvement. It's about instilling a culture of requesting ideas and input from the workers who are actually doing the operations. It's about eliciting the participation and the ideas of those doing the work and rewarding them whenever they come up with great ideas. Generally speaking, a good adage to follow when it comes to operations management is that that which is measured improved. There have been lots of interesting studies out there about how just measuring a process can improve the process because it brings focus and attention to the process, and it sends the message to the people who are doing the operations that efficiency and quality is important. There's a famous study done at General Electric Hawthorne Works plant, which showed, I think this was done in the 40s or 50s, and it showed that whenever something was actually measured and paid attention to, that was what was making the significant improvement in quality and efficiency, not what you did. At Hawthorne, they had the theory that if they improved the lighting, that efficiency and quality would improve. So they improved the lighting, and indeed, efficiency and quality improved. And then somebody came up with a theory that said, well, I don't wonder if we had to improve it that much. I wonder if we reduced the lighting in here, whether or not we would get the same efficiency and quality. And what they found was when they reduced the lighting, they also got improvements in efficiency and quality. And when they took the lighting back to where it was originally done, they still got improvements in efficiency and quality. And they realized that something else was going on, and that something else that was going on was that they were continually sending the message to their workers that they were interested in improving quality and interested in improving efficiency, and they were measuring the results of their processes, and it was just the fact that they were measuring the results that got the improvement. That's very important and very interesting about operations management. I think it's real important for you to have charts and checklists and sign-offs and document your procedures and standardize all of your procedures as well whenever it comes to implementing improvements in your operations management. And I think the very best practice is to have independent inspection complementing your personal accountability. That's independent inspection periodically. While you're doing the process, you want the workers who are responsible for the quality of the process to be inspecting their own work, to be running their own charts and graphs, and so that they can raise their hand and make improvements for themselves. But it's also important to have third-party inspection so that you have checks and balances in the process and send the right message to the people who are actually doing the work. Here's an example of a couple of things that I use every day in my life. Here's a checklist that I use every day. I call this my morning checklist. And in my morning checklist, every single morning I get up and I update my time and activity log. I update my training log. I have a detailed business log where I isolate my objectives and goals for the day, and I rate myself on whether or not I met those goals and objectives. I have a growth processing log that I use to manage personal growth, as well as my spiritual log, which I do the same with. Every morning on Facebook, I publish my energy of the day. And if you've had a birthday and you're a Facebook friend of mine, you know that every single day I go in and wish people happy birthday. Well, there are a few other columns that I have on my morning checklist, but this is a classic example of a checklist that can be used to improve quality and efficiency in operations management. In my case, it doesn't necessarily improve the efficiency, but it does improve the quality because it makes sure that I don't forget to do something. That's what a checklist can be really good at doing, is making sure that you don't miss a step in the process, making sure that you don't forget to fill out your training log or to wish somebody a happy birthday. One of those checklists that I have each day is called my training log. And this is my training log. So every day I go in and record how many warm-up miles I did, or how many walking miles I did, any miles that I do on my treadmill, how long I spent on that, what was my level of effort, and a little bit of a description about whether or not it was easy, or what particular path that I took or course that I followed on my treadmill, and if I also did any push-ups during the day. I'm kind of proud of this one because it shows that on October the 31st, I rode my bike for a couple of hours and rode about 37 miles. So I really like this. In fact, I give myself a little reward by highlighting in light green those efforts that I am especially proud of. Those efforts where I, in my particular case, rode more than 20 miles an hour on average. So those are just some examples about how you can use operations management techniques in your own personal life too. So here's the bottom line. Every company has repetitive tasks. And with a little bit of focus, you can improve the quality and the efficiency of those repetitive tasks at the same time. I really encourage you to focus on creating a culture of quality, of efficiency, and of continuous improvement. And here's a really good mantra that one of my clients came up with a few years ago. They like to say that in our business and every person in our business are works in process. So we're all getting better. I'm going to be a better business consultant tomorrow than I was yesterday. You might be a better CEO tomorrow than you were yesterday. And in your business, everything that you do in your business is going to be improved in terms of quality and efficiency over time. And as we showed in the examples that I just gave, that you can apply these concepts to your personal life too. And of course, if you know me at all, you know that I'm a strong advocate of personal growth and continuous process improvement. The principles of Kaizen, the principles of daily improvement are exactly what I use in my personal growth process and what I strongly encourage you to do as well, because they really will pay off benefits in the long term, both for your business and for your personal enjoyment of life. So that's been our agenda today. We talked about project management versus operations management. We talked about quality assurance versus quality control. We talked about a variety of methodologies: Kaizen, lean manufacturing, the Toyota 7 wastes, statistical process control, and continuous process improvement. I gave you a few tips for implementing these in your company, and we focused again on the bottom line. So here's your homework. I want you to identify your repetitive processes at your business, especially those that consume a lot of resources, and especially those that dramatically impact customer value, and see what you can do about improving the quality and efficiency within your business. Read books, take courses on operations management if you like, and of course get coaching and mentoring and outside support to improve your skills in operations management to make sure that you can improve quality and efficiency at your company. In just a minute, we're going to have open questions and answers where you get comments and questions on the topic of the day and then any other issues that you like. Tell me what your biggest takeaways are and insights are that you gathered from today's presentation, and tell me what you're going to focus on. The distinctions that we have at our company over a lot of other companies is that we don't want a lot of your money. We want you to spend an appropriate amount of money so that you can get the support that you need, the support that you can really use today, and the support that you can afford. I also don't want you to jump into the deep end of the swimming pool before you learn how to swim. There are people out there that will encourage you to do that, to just go start a business without the proper training and education and guidance and mentoring, but I'm not one of those, because I've seen far too many people struggle when they jumped into the deep end of the pool before they learned to swim at all. I also don't believe that belief and persistence alone will guarantee your success, because, see, I've seen way too many people bang their head against the wall with a business model that was never going to work or really need to be dramatically changed. Massive effort alone is required for your business success, but it's not sufficient for your business success. You have to have good guidance and mentoring and have a winnable game worth playing before you head out. So our support services here at Hoyt Management Group include education, training, consulting, coaching, and our newest set of services is on growth management, is helping you not just create plans, but helping you implement and execute the plans that we help you create. I encourage you to sign up for our new business growth acceleration kit, which you can get by going to paulhoyt.com/CEO bonus, which you'll get a new program I created called the 5 Choices of Winning CEOs, some articles on, one of them is on the 10 things that you should know about raising capital, some samples of the inspirational works that I've done, a free business clarity question with one of our senior consultants, and some surprise bonuses that we have there as well. The value to you could be enormous, so I encourage you, if you haven't done so already, to go to paulhoyt.com/CEO bonus and take advantage of our new Business Growth Acceleration Kit, which is absolutely free to you. I also would encourage you to purchase my CEO training program. If you find value in the free things that I have, I know that you're going to find value in my Beyond Business Survival CEO training program. It's really what you need to know when you're the CEO. It will help you avoid making mistakes that cost you $5,000, $10,000 or more, mistakes that will slow you down or shut you down entirely, can be avoided with the proper mentoring and with the proper training. Our next office hours is going to be in 2 weeks on October 13th, because next week I will be at my 51st CEO Space Business Growth Conference, so we're going to skip that week. And when I come back, I'm going to talk to you about a book that I just finished reading last night on my travels back from Kansas called Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh. It's the Zappos story. So anybody, if you've been around at all, you know that Zappos developed a tremendous reputation for exemplary customer service, and then they were eventually purchased by, or actually merged with, Amazon last year. And this is the story about creating Zappos and instilling that tremendous discipline, that tremendous energy of knock your socks off, wow kind of customer service. And I'm excited to be talking about that in 2 weeks. So, and if you have any topics that you'd like for me to address, you can go to paulssurvey.com and share those with me. And in between now and the next time we meet, I encourage you to do your homework. Now we're going to open it up to questions and answers. First, questions and comments on the topic of the day, and then any other issues that you might have. I'd like to understand what your takeaways and your insights were from this presentation. Post them in the Brilliant Business Group on Facebook if you can, and of course provide ideas to paulssurvey.com. So with that, Stephanie, do we have any questions for today?
We do. The first one here. How do project management and operations management work together? Good one.
That is a good one, because we've talked about them separately. Project management being one-time things that you typically only do once with a virtual team, and you build something that's typically original, and then operations being focused on repetitive tasks. Well, there is a class of things that people do, in companies do, that are right smack in the middle. And here's an example of that. An example of that might be that I'm a home builder, and I'm building 100 homes. And each one of those homes has its own specific project, but the process of building homes strongly resembles an operation. Because I have a permanent team, that my foundation team goes from house to house to house, my framers go from house to house to house, my electricians go from house to house to house. So I have a permanent team, and I can optimize that from an operations management point of view, but each project is different. Each house is a little bit different because of, the architecture of the house itself, the options that the homeowner may have selected or that we've chosen to put in if it's a spec house. So there is this class of operations, this class of business, where we have both project management disciplines and methodologies integrated with operations management methodologies to create something that's a bit of a hybrid. So that's one of the ways in which project management and operations management can go hand in hand in a specific business. But here's another way as well. So it's very typical that we would create a project to build something and then turn it over to the operations folks to run it. Good example is the new San Francisco 49ers football stadium that was created less than a mile north of my current house in Santa Clara, California. It was a huge multi-year project to build this billion-dollar stadium, and then once they opened it, now they're turning it over to the operations staff to continually focus on making sure that the people who visit the stadium have a quality experience, that everything is running the way that it should run, that we continue to increase the efficiency in the operations of the concession stand, of the ticket stand, etc. So we created something and built it using project management techniques and methodologies, and then turned it over now to the operations folks, where we be focused on operational efficiency and quality using operations management methodologies and focus. So those are two different ways in which project management and operations management work together to create a quality product, and in some cases go hand in hand. Hopefully that was helpful. Next question, Stephanie.
I don't have a lot of money. Can I still make improvements?
Absolutely, especially I think in the area of business process improvements. It doesn't cost a lot of money. It takes a little bit of time to document the way that you're currently doing things. It takes just a little bit of time to document, some of your weekly processes or monthly processes, and doesn't cost you any out-of-pocket expenditure. Here's an example from my own business. Every week I do these office hours presentation, and I have a 30-step checklist that I go through every single week when it comes to creating the office hours presentation, to creating this recording, to posting the recording, to creating the page in my, in paulhoyt.com or in the tribe area of paulhoyt.com that where you can come and access the recording. Every week I have another checklist that I go through whenever I create the new GoToWebinar presence that we're using, and put out the reminder emails and update everybody who's currently in my back-end system to automatically register them for that. So I've done a lot to automate my process and to improve the quality of the process by documenting the internal workflow and then checking them off step by step as I go through each week and my team goes through each week to do this business process, this process of doing the office hours. So that's an example of how you can apply some of these techniques to something that didn't cost a dime at all. So in your business, ask yourself the questions. Are there things that you are doing every week? Would you like to be able to hand that off to somebody else eventually so that they could do it instead of you doing it? And if so, then begin right now today to document the process, to document the step-by-step process, and continuing to update the documentation every time that you go through it until you reach the point to where the documentation doesn't need to be updated anymore, and then you can hand it off to somebody else and train them how to do it, with the caveat, of course, that I'll guarantee you that when you hand your documented process to somebody else and ask them to follow that process, that you'll find that there were steps that were missing, that you took for granted, that were just in your memory, that you didn't have to remind yourself of, but you need to improve the quality of the documentation when it goes from point A to point B, when it goes to that second person. So that's an example of something that you can do. Something you can do, especially when it comes to wasted motion, wasted inventory, wait time. Take a look at those 7 wastes that Toyota defined, and just see if there's something that you can't do in your business processes that would improve the quality or the efficiency of the process, which may not cost you any money at all, because you might not have to buy new equipment, might not have to have new tooling, might not have to buy anything in order to eliminate a wasteful step in the process, or to somehow accelerate the process so you reduce any sort of inventory that you might have in your process. So I think there's a lot that you can do, because I think continuous process improvement is more of an attitude and a culture than it is something that requires a lot of money to implement at any business. Next question, Stephanie.
Okay. I'm re-engineering my sales process, and I want to know what key metrics I should be tracking and how to document those metrics.
That
how
is
to document that new system.
That's
and how frequently then, I'm sorry, one more part. How frequently should it be reviewed for its success or changes?
I'm gonna defer the talking about the second one until I talk about the first one. With what do you do? Well, with sales, it's typically about generating leads, having quality conversations with folks and qualifying them appropriately, making proposals, asking for the order and gaining agreement or closing the deal, which is language we used to use, and then following up. So good things for you to measure is how many new leads did you get this week or this month. So you have goals that say, for example, if we know that every time that we close a deal, it's worth $10,000 to us, and we need to close 10 deals a month, and we only close 1 out of 10 deals that we have. Then in order, if we're only closing 1 out of 10 and we need to get 10, then we know that we need to have 100 leads. Every single month, we need to have 100 leads, which translates into 10 to close deals, which translates into us meeting our revenue objectives. So we want to make sure that we measure the number of leads that are coming into our system. We want to make sure also, I'm a big fan of measuring the number of quality leads as well. So when you get into the conversation with somebody on a sales conversation, one of the things you typically do right off the bat, after you establish trust and rapport, after you establish a good conversational environment with your prospect, is to ask them great questions about their business to determine whether or not they really are a good prospect. Because it's not just about having leads, it's about having quality leads. And when we ask things like, do you have a budget? Are you looking at any competition? Who's going to make the decision? Have you bought anything like this before? All those are great questions to qualify our prospects and to see whether or not they're worth spending any more time on. With sophisticated sales teams, you may also measure the time that you spend on any one prospect. But that's, I think, a step 2 or 3 down the road. Then you definitely want to measure your conversion rate, which is the number of people that you talk to versus the number of people that actually purchase something from you. And you might also measure long-term the lifetime value of a customer. So when it comes to re-engineering sales processes, there are a lot of things that you can measure to improve the operations of that sales process. Measure the leads that are coming into you by the type of source that they come through. How many are coming through referrals? How many are coming through Facebook? How many are coming through LinkedIn, through endorsed emails, through any of your referral or affiliate partners that you have? So we measure our leads, and we measure them by the source of the lead. Then we measure which ones of those leads are actually quality leads. We measure, in some cases, the value of the proposals that we give to our leads. We measure the conversion rate, and then we can measure the lifetime value of the customer. So sales is a measurement-rich environment that I'm a big fan. I don't know if you've seen my Beyond Business Survival CEO training program, but one of the things I talk about in there is that one of the best practices in sales is to track your results, is to measure results, and sales is a way that is an area of your company that you can measure a lot of things to your benefit to be able to do that. Next question. Oh, wait a minute. We had a second question there. It was, how often should I measure this? Should I be looking at my sales process? I think, off the top of my head, I would say if anything's wrong with your sales process, you're not getting the leads, you're not closing the deals, then it's a good time to start measuring that and finding out how many new leads you really are getting and how many of them are quality leads versus poor quality leads. And then I'd say at least once a year or so. It's a really good idea to take a look at all of your key processes at least once a year to see if there isn't a way that you can improve the quality and improve the efficiency of that process. Next question, Stephanie.
Okay, last question. When should I document my business processes?
That's a good question. I kind of talked about that during the presentation itself. When I was giving examples about how I document my office hour process. I think it's from the very start. From the very start, when you first think about closing books, when you first think about processing payroll, when you first think about sending out invoices, when you first think about doing something like an office hours presentation or a weekly blog, anything that you want to make sure that you have the good quality with, anything that involves multiple steps in the process, anything that you want to hand off to somebody else eventually, I recommend that you begin to document that process from the very beginning. That you just, so that you can be focused on, all right, here's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. I want to make sure my quality is as good as it can possibly be, and I want to document the process so that I can hand it off to somebody else, and I'm going to move on to higher value tasks. So I think the answer to that is from day one. We document our processes from the very first time that we do anything that has multiple steps to it or has any sort of importance with it and consumes a little bit of time and money from us. Do we have any other questions, Stephanie?
Nope, that's it.
Then I'm going to open it up as sometimes we do when we have time at the end of a presentation like this, is to open it up to any questions at all, not just those that are related to the conversation of the day. We can talk about tribal leadership. We can talk about the future of management. We can talk about project management. We can talk about operations management, or any of the other 49 different office hours presentations that we've worked on over the last year or so. It's been about 13 months since we've been doing this. We'll see if anybody else has a question here, or if any of the I did not introduce the two ladies who are helping me with the call today, Marcel Fernando from Washington State and Stephanie May from the Rockland, California, Sacramento area. I'm both honored and blessed to have them both on my team and have them assist in the call. Marcel is a fantastic marketing strategist. I think she's a great coach in addition to being a great social media a marketing specialist, and Stephanie is a great business consultant as well. And I would expect that some of you would enjoy the opportunity to work with both of these young ladies in addition to working with myself as you grow your businesses over time. Any other questions come through while I was doing that little introduction of my team, Stephanie?
Nope.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, with that, I'm going to thank you all for joining me either on the live presentation or in the recording. It's really nice to have you here with the office hours. As you know, I am passionate about doing everything I can to improve the success rate and accelerate the growth rate of CEOs and entrepreneurs in America. And until we meet again, this is Paul Hoyt, wishing you a most marvelous and prosperous day. Bye-bye.